And even though the group commanders and all are trying to get their men to rest and recover so that their nerves are not shot, he actually demands that 1 in 10 pilots be sent for a court martial.
Yeah, that's a brilliant strategy for Germany right at that point in time.
Yeah, for being and knowing the court martial system in Nazi Germany, especially like the Luftwaffe, which is not only Goring's special child, but full of Nazi loyalists, these guys would have just been shot for no reason, even though they don't have ammo, they don't have the training hours, they don't have the fuel. Their aircraft are not keeping up in terms of development with the Allies, which have now the Lightnings, they have better Spitfires, more Hurricanes, they have Kitty Hawks, and the Mustangs as well. And these are just wreaking havoc. It just crushed morale quite a bit that General Galland, who was one of the Luftwaffe generals, he personally called up most group commanders of the Luftwaffe and said, just ignore it. We're not going to do anything. But, it did also, later he would kind of relent. And one of his key wing commanders, group captain, sorry, Mackie Steinhoff, who's also a very famous figure, these guys clashed heads a lot, but this is like really Goring's brilliant strategy to improve the war. Shoot ourselves in the foot. Greg, maybe you'd like to take some time now to talk about the main invasion plans that we have.
Of course. Here, let me bring up the best map I could find. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So, as you had already brought up, it was going to be the duty of the United States 7th Army, led by Patton, with the British 8th Army, commanded by Montgomery. They're going to be attacking. If you're looking at this map for the audience on the audio only podcast, it's the Americans basically on the west, the British on the east, in the southern portions of Sicily. 7 divisions.
I might just add
Yeah.
one thing. The location of where they landed was also where these armies were also based prior to the invasion taking place, with the strength of the British coming from Alexandria at that time,
Mhm.
and the United States coming from, Northwest Africa
Northwest
after
Africa.
the
Yeah.
after.
The strategy is quite simple. They're more or less coordinating the amphibious assaults in southeastern Sicily, targeting key ports and airfields that could threaten the Allied beachheads. 7 divisions were scheduled to come ashore along a 100-mile front stretching from Catania to Licata, with elements of 2 airborne divisions who would land behind the Axis lines. So for those of you who know their D-Day history, it's a little kind of like it's like a smaller scale. It's a little representative of what we'll see on D-Day, but a
I
lot
wouldn't
less
call it
destructive.
as much of a smaller scale. They did
Well,
land
it's
over
big. Yeah,
130,000.
it's big, and in many ways, it's kind of a dress rehearsal for the Normandy landings as well. I mean, the people who are planning this are literally in the process of planning what's going to happen in Normandy, so it's, vice versa. So, from the point of landing, they aim to, secure the island by advancing north towards San Stefano, and this would effectively split the island in two. Patton's 7th Army was going to land 3 divisions in the Gulf of Gela, supported by paratroopers from the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment Combat Team and the 3rd Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry. Meanwhile, on the other side, Montgomery's 8th Army, they're going to land 4 divisions, an independent brigade, and a commando force along a 40-mile front extending from Pacino's Peninsula to just south of Syracuse. A glider landing would also be done to assist the amphibious troops, securing Syracuse specifically, and that's going to be a rough one. The Allies plan to initially deploy over 163,000 men, 600 tanks, 14,000 vehicles, and nearly 2,000 pieces of artillery. Like 2,000 pieces of artillery. The amount of boats necessary for this, it's a pretty incredible feat, to say the least.
That's, I guess, one of the things I mentioned. The biggest restrictions on this was landing craft
Exactly. Yeah.
and availability of shipping, because they were not only concerned about landing these men, but also getting the right amount, the unnecessary amount of fuel,
Mhm.
weapons, equipment. Like the bulldozer is also going to be a big friend here.
Yep. Yep. And I
That
mean, this feeds into even the Italian campaign. Throughout the entire Italian campaign, there's a need, and there's actually a strong need for amphibious assaults to get by what are going to be all these lines of defense by the Axis forces. But they need these ships for D-Day, and losing the ships especially would be very detrimental to their planning. So they're really struggling with resources, to say the least, in the Southern campaign. But not right now. It's not as bad as it'll get later. Now,
would you like
so
me to perhaps just detail out the order of battle of the units that were going to be involved in
yeah,
this
sure, go for it.
operation?
I'll keep up the map.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I mean. Because so we have the British Eighth Army, and it was comprised of two different corps. So the 13th Corps, commanded by General Miles Dempsey, they are the ones landing closer to Syracuse. That consists of the 5th Infantry and the 50th Infantry as part of the initial wave, with the 70th Infantry in the 1st Airborne Division and 4th Armored Brigade coming in later as part of this corps. The southern portion of the landing around Ficino is by the 30th Corps under General Oliver Lees, which also had the 1st Canadian Infantry Division and Canadian Tank Brigade, the 51st Infantry Division, and the 23rd Armored Brigade.
Yeah, one of my
Yeah,
best friends growing up, his grandfather was part of this. He served in
yeah.
Sicily and Italy.
That, if I'm not mistaken, it was Churchill who kind of insisted or one of the Canadian generals that wanted some of those men to participate
Yeah, for
to
experience.
get experience in preparation for D-Day.
Yeah, and they gave. I won't go into detail, but it's actually kind of like folklore here in Canada that we got screwed in Sicily. Because if you actually look at the troop movements, we got thrown in kind of the middle portion where there was a
Yeah.
highly, like a large concentration of Axis forces, but it wasn't glamorous because we weren't taking any real territory. So we had to basically fight like these hard battles while the Americans and British forces would end up securing the key territories and getting the glory.
Oh yeah, I remember like one assault that failed. It was a northern center portion,
Yeah.
and Patton was just like, "Yeah, the Canadians can't do it. They don't know how to do it. It's got to leave
Fuck
it to us
Patton.
Americans." Then the United Seventh U.S. Seventh Army. So you had the Second Corps of General Omar Bradley, which had the First Infantry Division, the famous Big Red One, and the 45th Infantry Division. And you also had the Provisional Corps, which had the Second Armored Division and the Third Infantry Division. You also had some airborne units, which were kind of more under the command of Alexander himself, which had the 9th Infantry Division and 82nd Airborne Divisions of the United States and the 46th Infantry Division of the British. Now, ABC did have overall command. The Western Task Force of the Navy was under Vice Admiral Ken Hewitt, which would be supporting the American landings. And the British landings were supported by the Eastern Task Force, which was under the command of Admiral Bertram Ramsey, the hero of Operation Dynamo. So yeah, this, as you said, it's the total strength, if you include like support personnel and such,
Yeah.
it's about 160,000 people at the start of the battle for the Allied side.
And then on the Axis side, the German contingent would include the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, the 15th Panzergrenadier Division, elements of the 1st Parachute Division, the 29th Panzergrenadier Divisions, headquarters of the 14th Panzer Corps. You'd have Generals Hans Valentine Hübe commanding all the German sectors, reporting to General Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, with General Alfredo Guzzoni, who would lead all the Italian sectors. That doesn't go as well. And they would be under the command of Vittorio Ambrioso. The Axis forces numbered about 400,000 soldiers, on paper, I'll say that, equipped with 260 tanks, 200 artillery pieces, and about 1,400 aircraft. Aircraft, they weren't doing so bad, but as you can see, we're looking at 200 artillery pieces versus nearly 2,000 for the Allies. And to be honest, as we're seeing even today in the Ukrainian war, artillery seems to be the backbone of your military success.
That's true. I guess that's why Napoleon always said artillery is the god of
Yeah.
the battlefield.
I don't
Or
know if you
God
wanted
fights.
to.
Sorry, God fights on the side
Yeah.
on the better of the best artillery.
Did
Yeah,
you want to
you
cover
see.
Operation Corkscrew?
I've actually left that to you, if you
Oh,
don't mind.
sure. Yeah, because we went into depth about Operation Mincemeat, which is one of the craziest operations that deserves a more modern movie. I think you mentioned there was a movie. I think there was a movie. Was it 10 years ago they made one on this?